we hope that their leadership takes the right decision. But the deal we'll accept is they end their nuclear program. It's very straightforward.
It is a good deal, a deal that meets our core objectives. Iran is not going to simply dismantle its program because we demand it to do so. That's how the world works, and that's not what history shows us.
Well, as you just heard, quite a contrast in remarks from the president a few years ago and from this week as he announces a preliminary agreement with Iran. Critics are saying the U.S. is giving up too much of its leverage and worry what impact this deal will have on a possible arms race in an already volatile Middle East. Joining us now, the author of the book, A Battle for the Soul of Islam, and president of American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Welcome, sir. Great to have you here today.
Well, it's great to be with you, Uma. Thank you for having me.
Well, you know, this deal is really incredible by virtue of the fact that not one nuclear facility in Iran will be shut down. Do you believe that countries like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Jordan will rely on White House assurances that Iran will be held accountable for any violations when, for example, on the issue of inspections, Iran has the right to stop any unannounced site visits and will only allow scheduled inspections?
Well, I think they're smarter than what our administration sadly has set back the clock decades. And if you want to look at the concerns of an arms race, they are already in one in the Middle East. And the proxy wars are all over the place with the arming of Assad by Iran, with the arming of the Houthis and their support from Iran. Saudi Arabia did something they haven't done in over a generation, which was start a war outside their borders in Yemen in order to say to Iran, enough is enough. And now the old calculus in the Middle East, where a sanctions regime is being pushed economically to break their back, and the Saudis said, you know, America and the West has our back, so that sort of stabilized the region. That old calculus is gone. The new calculus is, oh, the West doesn't have our back. We're going to fuel the radicals in Syria and all over the place because we have to counter the Shia, the Persians from the defeating the Arabs, and so therefore their prince, one of the old princes, the head of intelligence, Turki al-Faisal, just said a few days ago, he said, whatever they got, we want the same, and that's going to be the new calculus. They feel they're on their own, and it's really sad, all the opportunities we've lost in the Middle East in the past few years.
I know you mentioned Saudi Arabia. You know, once those sanctions are lifted, Iran, of course, gets its economy back, making money, using a great deal of those funds to continue its campaign of state-sponsored terrorism across the region. That alone, enough to fuel other Middle Eastern nations to do what they can to get powerful nuclear weapons on their own in a bid to protect themselves. And when you mention Saudi Arabia, the Wall Street Journal reporting this week that that nation has quietly signed a nuclear cooperation deal with South Korea.
That's what's scary. Remember, these countries are part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So what's happening to that? When they see America no longer having their back and signing deals with their enemies, at the sort of blindness to the prisoners of conscience in Iran, blindness to the genocide being fueled in Syria, they're going to continue to say, you know what, maybe we don't even need a program. We can talk to Pakistan and get a bomb within a few days because we need it to balance against the Shia crescent that's building through Iraq and Syria. So the clock is being set back. Unfortunately, we are now having a conversation where the Saudis, who are really fueling radical Islam and ISIS all over the planet, now has to become even more of an ally with us in order to balance the damage that we've done with Iran.
You know, the president continues to say that without this deal, we're on the path to war. Is it really that black and white? Isn't there room for an in-between?
Absolutely. I mean, to say that the reason the Farsi media today is cheering this is because the economic sanctions were crippling them. So they had to fix this because of the economics, but they did it giving back nothing. There's no assurances. Israel is more at risk than ever. We could have continued to break their back economically. We won the Cold War without firing a bullet against the Soviets. Their economy broke and defeated them. We could have done the same thing with Iran. It's not only two choices, but unfortunately, the president really has this fictitious sense of what his legacy should be to sign this agreement. And the economic relief that is going to happen with Iran is actually going to give them more billions to fuel the genocide in Syria and elsewhere. It's not going to help the people of Iran.
Well, let me ask you this. What message does it send to the Middle East, including Israel, that there's really no price for aggression, and that instead of holding Iran accountable for backing terrorist campaigns like the one going on in Yemen, it's being rewarded with a nuke deal and getting those sanctions lifted? In your view, the U.S. simply caved on this one?
It really did, and I think it sends a message, most importantly to the liberals who are part of the Arab awakening, that we're sort of going to the most evil autocrats and theocrats to give them what they want. We don't care even about our own prisoners in Iranian jails. We don't care about the Pastor Abdinis of the world in Iran. We don't care about the millions that are being displaced in Syria by Iranian weapons and bombs and money. So at the end of the day, they're sort of being told they're on their own, and it's a free-for-all to continue this arms race. And Saudi appropriately saying, if Iran's going to move towards it, we're going to put back our so-called civilian nuclear program that they had said was into 2020. Now they might step up or even start to talk, as you said, to South Korea and others. I mean, it's just a mess because America has become weak, and we're sort of trading this fictitious agreement. I mean, if you really want to know what's happening, look at Iranian Farsi media. That's when you know what they're getting in this deal.
Let me ask you, you and other concerned critics, are you putting your hopes in the U.S. Congress to try and make some type of movement here to get this deal scaled back?
I hope so. I can only hope and pray that the constitutional protections that the people of America have a right to sign off on treaties will come into place, because our commander-in-chief is putting us at risk, and I think he's not really paying attention to the theology of these mullahs who really have an end of times theology, and us Muslim reformers are being left out to dry. And I think the members of Congress have a clearer vision of what should be against the global jihad, be it Sunni or Shia. And ultimately, I hope we have an ability to push back and protect allies like Israel that are being left alone in the wake of this agreement.
Dr. Jasser, always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. All the best to you.
Thank you.